Hello everyone and welcome to the new episode of the Follow the Trawler podcast. I'm your host Colin Weston and we're going to take a look back on another season that wasn't for the Met Police, speak to a young blue starlet about the youth teams running the FA Cup, hear from FTT alumni Minnie Birch, and a special exclusive performance just for FTT, and also talk about what we've been up to in general. So, it has been over 4 months since the Met's last competitive game, over 3 months since our last trip to Imber Court, and 2 weeks since the season was ended, to all intents and purposes, by the Southern League. So now seems as good a time as any to recap the 2021 season, or what there was of it, for the Met Police. In our last podcast, we went over the transfer dealings at the start of the pre-season, but there were a few more changes after that. We will start with the departures from Imber Court. To clarify, something we mentioned in the last podcast, the destinations for Daniel Akinwunmi was Burgess Hill, and Ross Murdoch went to Knapp Hill, where we, as FTT, went to sponsor him for the season. Between then and the season's premature end, the club would also see ex-Malaysian international defender Junior Eldstall return to professional football with Chonburi FC in Thailand, and Stu Wilkin also left to get a contract in the Far East. We believe he may have been offered a move to JDT in the Malaysian League, but haven't been able to find a conclusive answer as to if this deal was finalised. Also departing was FTT fave Kai Hamilton, who joined Westfield in order to get some more first-team football. Kai was one of the players that we loved to watch playing. Pacey, not afraid to take on his man, and we guarantee with a more consistent end product, he would be a threat at a much higher level. Coming into the club was ex-Aldershot teenage defender Simba Kadoya, former AFC Wimbledon midfielder David Fitzpatrick from Farnborough, Arsene Ujkaj from Westfield, and Elias Nichols joined the club after playing and studying out in the United States. There was also a trio of old faces coming back to Imber Court. Ex-Blues youth player Ben Schroll rejoined on a short-term loan from Aldershot Town, striker Jack Knight signed after 6 years away from the club, and, after taking a year out from the game, fullback Josh Webb also rejoined the Blues. On the pitch, early pre-season was tough to judge, with a lot of trialists coming in and out of the team, including on one night having 2 full teams playing at the same time in different games. The last 3 games was when we got to see a settled starting 11, and with 10 goals in the final 2 games against Winchester City and Worthing, there was an air of expectation going into the first game of the season, when the Met hosted Yate Town. After a 1-1 draw, some things became very apparent about the squad compared to previous seasons. Firstly, there was a more physical, combative element. Yate could and should have had 2 players sent off in the first half alone, and it was clear we would be a physical match for anyone in the division. Secondly, there was a real competition for places across the midfield, with 6 or 7 players pushing for starts. Also, early signs were promising that a partnership was forming at centre-back between captain Ollie Robinson and Kadaiwa. The next game kept the positive vibes coming, with a 3-1 away win in the FA Cup at Sutton Common Rovers. It was a workmanlike performance in ever-changing weather conditions, but it was a clinical second half by the Blues, highlighted by an incredible defence-splitting pass by Luke Robertson to Max Blackmore for the Mets' opening goal. A return to league action saw a second successive 1-1 draw away to Weston-super-Mare, with Ricky Johnson getting his first Met goal. Ricky is the latest prospect from Donovan Chislett's successful development team, breaking through into the first team and impressing many with his pace and trickery on the left wing during the pre-season. The last game of the month saw Harrow Borough come to Imber Court, and the potential clicked on an eventful night with the Met coming away 5-2 victors. Both clubs ended the game with 10 men, Louis Birch getting a straight red for a crunching tackle, Mazza bagging a hat-trick, and Luke Robertson getting physically throttled around the neck for the first, but not the last time, this season. The FA Cup saw the Blues drawn at home to the rivals down the road, Walton Casuals, and expectations were high, having started 4 games unbeaten in all competitions, but it wasn't to be. An abject first half performance saw Simba dismissed after just 15 minutes, and an extremely questionable penalty to the visitors had the Met trailing 2-1 at half time. The second half saw a much improved Blues performance, but the equaliser wasn't to be, and the cup dream, for this season at least, was over. Simba's dismissal seemed to break up the understanding he and Ollie had showed up until this point, but credit where it's due to stand-in Arsene Ujkaj, who did a great job filling in at the back, in spite being primarily known as a midfielder. The cup hangover carried into the next game, a 2-1 league defeat away at an impressive Swindon Supermarine. The cup hangover continued into the next game, a 2-1 league defeat away at an impressive Swindon Supermarine, but that result kick-started the club to get back-to-back victories, starting at Imber Court and a 3-1 win against Gosport Borough. Aldershot loanee right-back Ben Trawler scored on his debut, alongside a Mazza double. This was followed by a hugely impressive 2-1 away win to one of the title favourites, Taunton Town. A goal by Max Blackmore and Ben Trawler scoring again in what would turn out to be his last game for the club, owing to injury and league suspension. His record from right-back, 2 games, 2 goals. A strong performance almost ended in a draw, but a fantastic save by Reese at the death ensured the boys would bring all 3 points back to East Molesey. Also, full respect to Taunton manager Rob Gray, who took the time out to speak to me a few days after the game, was very complimentary about the work that Gavin is doing at Imber Court, and was very gracious and open in defeat. Next up was a league trip to Walton, and revenge was on the mind of all Met fans for the cup defeat just weeks earlier. What the travelling faithful saw was the worst Met performance of the season, conceding 3 in the second half against an average casual side, but undoubtedly the one that deserved to win on the night. Speaking as a fan, this result hurt them most, due to some animosity and disrespect from the stands during the cup game, but also because the team didn't show up on the night. I'm a silver lining kind of guy after reflecting on most games, but this is one of the few times I just did not find a single positive to take from a game. That weekend was a difficult away trip to Felixstowe and Walton United in the FA Trophy. Despite being a step lower than ourselves, I knew how good they were, and their 5-0 demolition of Westfield the round before was a stark warning of what they were capable of. Even without their starlet Tiger Smalls, and trust us, remember that name, they were up for a fight in miserable conditions, and on an undulating pitch, took the game 3-1, although the scoreline flattered them slightly. It was a nightmare afternoon for young Zach Chislett, giving away a free kick leading directly to a goal and being sent off. But unlike the Walton game, this was a full-blooded effort by the lads, and even with 10 men, we were in this game all the way. Congratulations to Felixstowe, by the way, who reached a second round proper before eventually bowing out of the competition. Also a ground we recommend for groundhoppers, as the food is great, has a physical club shop with some absolute bargains, and they're a really friendly club to boot. It was then back to league action, and off the back of those 2 defeats, there was a bit of trepidation for the visit of Hendon, who were improving rapidly under the management of Lee Allenson. But a solid Blues performance saw us take a 1-0 victory thanks to another goal by Mazza, his 7th of the season, in what would turn out to be our final competitive game. We played a further 2 friendlies in early December with victories over Chalfont St Peter and Kingstonian, but by this point I'd already accepted the season was over, which turned out to be correct, with the FA ending all seasons at step 3 on the 19th of March. At the season's end, the Blues were in the playoff positions, sitting pretty in 5th and with an impressive looking squad in place. So what were the highlights for me? Firstly, the performance in the midfield. Ollie Knight's deliveries are always a threat. Sammy de St Croix has been a fantastic signing, great engine and always there to support the attack. Luke Robertson's passing and forward runs. Add to that Ujkaj, Birch, Rudy Allen, Johnson, Fitzpatrick, Frith and Brewster all pushing for places, and the competition is fierce. Also the continued form of Reece Forster in goal, who amazingly only got 1 clean sheet this season, but was producing heroics on a regular basis. Finally, the slow build of the pitch too, with new things happening such as the clubhouse/academy area, which is on the horizon, along with shirts and season tickets returning for fans to buy if they so wish. On a footballing front, downsides were few. That game at Walton Casuals, which just flat out sucked. Losing Kai Hamilton was a personal disappointment, but overall there was a real optimism, and I don't believe it was misplaced. We'll now never know what that team could have done, but I believe it could have been something special. So, looking ahead to 21-22, there are a few things on my mind. Firstly, I hope that fans can safely be back at games to support their clubs. That goes without saying. From a Met perspective, I have genuine concerns we may lose a few players. Reece Forster has been on loan further up the ladder at Maidstone United, and it would not surprise me if a club came in for him, especially with how he's performed over the past 2 years. Also, young defender Jude Malloy has been offered a 2-week trial with Championship side Birmingham City, so he could be the next Blue to step up into league football, following the example of Lucas Ness, who joined Charlton last year and has been impressing this season for their under-23 team. I would love to see this squad stay together, maybe bring in 1 or 2 more players, like an experienced central defender and a tall centre forward, and give it a go next year. But these are all ambitious guys, so I'm preparing for the worst. But in Gavin McPherson, Scott Tarr and John Nurse we trust. So fingers crossed, looking forwards. And so what about ourselves? Well, the plan as it stands right now is to continue with producing the printed programmes at the Met. Times are tough, but it is something we believe in, and in the first season we showed it could be financially viable, and with the support of Footy Print, who do our design and printing, we feel it is certainly worth carrying on. In addition to this, we have a new FTT project. Yes, we have our own physical shop. That's right, within Imber Court we have our own club shop that will be running and stocking for the Met, so come say hi. Come in for programmes, books, DVDs, shirts and other footballing whimsies, basically anything that I find that's kind of interesting. We also have some ideas going forward, such as interviews with some of the players and live podcasts directly from the shed after games. And we have some other ideas floating about as well, so we may even do another fanzine. Who knows? Speaking of literature, the awesome Minnie Birch made a recommendation that fans of football should all check out. Here's her take on We Lose Every Week by Andrew Lawn.
So the next book I've read is a debut from author Andrew Lane, and it's entirely, as they say, my cup of tea. We Lose Every Week, The History of Football Chanting. I devoured it. It's of course going to ring true many moments for football fans, but I think that anybody would actually enjoy this as a read. He kind of leaves no stone unturned. It's sad, funny, crude, offensive. It's the real side of chanting and the kind of role that it plays in the game, past, present and future. It's interesting because it came out towards the end of 2020. Andrew's a really big, passionate football fan, so there's that voice there to kind of question what is it we're missing from the game at the moment. What do the crowd, the 12th man as they call it, really mean to the game? So the timing of the book coming out is important, I think. Strikes a lot of important conversation. Andrew's passion is clear in every word in the book, but he's also able to sort of step back out of the game and look at the bigger social political context of the world of football, and perhaps take it more with a pinch of salt, if that makes sense as well in some ways. I don't think I'm selling it very well, but I can't recommend it enough. I love it. I love everything about it. I love the choice he made to have a Sex Pistols vibe punk cover with the graphics and the font, and he kind of depicts this empty stadium almost with one fan kind of celebrating the big heights of a win whilst another sits sort of deflated, just sort of, I don't know, really representing that dichotomy of people's relationship with football. A really easy voice to read, broken down into really simple chapters, and a really interesting kind of social political history book, really, that I think kind of secondary school age children that are interested in football would love, grown-ups would love. There definitely are uncomfortable moments in it because he doesn't leave the stones unturned of maybe the bigotry that you can find, the uncomfortable things, but I think that's a really important part of the story to tell. So absolutely would recommend you grabbing a copy of that one.
Back to the Met, we wonder what else could be ahead for next year. Well, each year at Imber Court, we seem to produce another talented player from the academy, and we got to speak to who we thought had potential earlier this week. Here is our interview with promising goalkeeper Cameron Maung-Maung. So, joining us today is Cameron Maung-Maung of Met Police youth fame, I shall go with. And how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm looking forward to talking to you.
So, a lot of people won't know much about you, so tell people about yourself a little bit. Okay,
so I am an 18-year-old goalkeeper. Been at the Met 2 years. As you said, predominantly the youth setup, working with Donovan and G and Dean. Played a good number of games now for the 23s as well, so kicking around with them and in the first team. So previous clubs, been at Sutton United in the years before Met, and Fulham and QPR as well. But that was a while ago, under 11s, under 12s, those sort of years. But yeah, 2 years with the Met has been a great experience.
I'm glad you kept that Sutton news until now from me, or I just ignored you. Having a strong Carshalton background in my family.
Yeah, I thought I'd slip it in there.
So I'm going to get onto the football side in just a minute, but just to kind of get this perspective out of the way, how have you been coping with the lockdown, mentally as well as the physical side of things? Because we understand that you've got your A-level mocks starting from tomorrow.
Yeah.
How have you been able to study and prepare compared to what would be the norm?
Sure. So I think for me, actually, I've quite enjoyed lockdown. I think I'm quite a rare case in that instance. I think studying wise, compared to a lot of other people, compared to my peers at school, they've been a little less focused on the work than I have. Although I think for me, the flexibility that lockdown's given me with work, doing work when you need, it's been quite beneficial to me. It's enabled me to actually get that balance of schoolwork and physical training. Obviously, I've been working with Ryan, the S&C coach at Met, a lot. So I think having that flexibility for me has been huge physically and mentally, like you say. So yeah, I've enjoyed it personally.
Let's talk football. That's why we're here. How did you get started? And like you said, you've been at several clubs. What eventually brought you to the Met?
How did I get started? I think originally, like most goalkeepers, I started as an outfield player. I was a centre mid, I believe, back for my school in must be under 8s or under 9s. I think I was stuck in centre mid because I was the only one that didn't want to shoot. I was quite happy just to knock the ball around and let my teammates have a bit more responsibility. But I think like most goalkeepers, our school goalkeeper got injured. I got thrown in net, saved a couple penalties in a cup final, and it's history since then, really. I think that's how most goalkeepers get started, and yeah, that's how it was for me. I've had a number of clubs from Sunday League level. I was at AC Fulham. I think that was my first club, and then, like I said, QPR, Fulham, spells at Esher Wizards and Sutton as well. And then I think I joined the Met 2 years ago from Sutton because the Met the 18s don't have an educational link right now, and I thought that's perfect for me in terms of the quality of football and still being able to do my 3A levels like I wanted to do. So in that respect, the Met was perfect for me, and also I'd known from other people the reputation that the Met Police Youth system has got, and I really wanted to be a part of that as well.
It's interesting you mentioned Esher Wizards. I've seen a few of the lads have come up through that system, haven't they? Yeah.
I think the coach, Andy Skates, he knows quite a lot of the lads. Yeah, I think they've done very well in recent years. And like you said, they've had the Met have got a number of ex-Esher boys with them at the moment as well.
So we've spoken to you at a few games, and normally with Paul, your dad, around as well, as a regular face around Imber Court.
Yeah.
How important has family been in your career and supporting you on that front?
I don't think I can give my parents high enough praise in this regard, to be honest. They, right from day one, my dad's always been a massive football fan, but there was no point in my youth where I was pressured or forced to play football. I think I started playing when I was 8 or 9, and that's when it sort of came naturally to me. But at no point was I ever pressured into playing football, like, if I didn't want to. But since then, they've been unbelievable. Both my parents sort of are quite lucky because they have the opportunity to work from home, which has obviously been good in this lockdown as well. But means they've always been around me after school and on weekends as well. So I think I'd probably say my dad was my first goalkeeping coach, actually. He was a centre back in his day, so he learned goalkeeping at the same time as I did, really, and we've built off each other's understanding of the game. I've learnt a lot from him on the football side, but on a personal level as well. Obviously, if I can aspire to be a man like my father, then I'll be very proud. And my mum as well, incredibly hard worker. She inspires me to to push myself. She's never massively driven me either, but I know she's there to support me whenever I need, and I'm massively grateful for them both.
Yeah, I can hear. Did your dad play at a certain level then? 'Cause he's never
God.
mentioned that to me.
Yeah, so he played. I think he said he had trials with Southampton once, but he's played in a few leagues. I'm not sure I could tell them, but I think he was at Walton at one point, I believe. I don't know what level they would have been at the time, but I know he was a centre back, bit of a sweeper, bit of an extinct position nowadays, unfortunately. Yeah, he played a long time, and ultimately I think for him travelling took over. So.
Okay, so he was a bit handy. I'll have to bring it up next time I see him around the ground. Get a bit of info.
I'm sure he'd be happy to talk to you about it.
I've got no doubt about that. So we see on social media a lot the work being put in by yourself, Jaden Alley, and Reese, of course. What's it like training with those guys and working with Dean Hurlow as well, who's the Met goalkeeper coach, people who don't know? Yeah,
so Dean's been with me the whole time I've been at Met, pretty much. And I remember my first session with him, actually. I was just coming out of a shoulder injury, and we were just working on sort of footwork and a bit of distribution with the feet as well. And since then, I've really been able to build a very good connection with Dean. One thing I will say about Dino, he worked incredibly hard for us as goalkeepers. Even though, obviously, being a goalkeeper coach is not his full-time job, I don't think I can name anyone who's put more effort into the goalkeeping coach position than him. In terms of Reese and Jaden, trained with them a lot, learned a lot off them as well. Obviously, older goalkeepers, more experienced goalkeepers, played more games, been in more situations than me. It's been I'd certainly say, very valuable to be around them, even if it's not in a football environment, just to be around them, see how they carry themselves. Two jokers, I would say, as well. So, good friends of mine now. I'm just looking forward to working with all three of them more in the future as well, to be fair.
Yeah, there was a great moment with Reese. I think it was last season when one of the Met games got called off early in the morning, so they arranged an under-23 game, which you might have actually played. Oh no, Jaden played the second half. And a lot of the first team was played the first half. Mm-hmm. But Reese didn't, because I think Gavin wanted to see what that they were doing. And about 25 minutes in, you see Reese get off the bench, and Gavin's up in the stands, and he shouts down, he goes, "Reese, what are you doing there? You're not on the team sheet." You went, "Yes, I am. I'm Stu Wilkin." I was like, "Oh, please say they're going to bring him on." But just that response was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. I think that summarises Reese pretty well. He's a top lad, to be fair. I absolutely love him to pieces, and he deserves everything he's getting at the moment with Maidenhead as well.
Yeah, I've actually mentioned that in the podcast, and I have a legitimate concern as a Met fan. I may not be seeing him again next season. He's so good that I'd be surprised if clubs weren't looking at him. Really 100%. Surprised.
Yeah, I know. Obviously, I won't name drop anything, but I know a few other coaches as well are interested in him. Step 1 to 3 would be a huge jump as well,
and he could do it. Easily step 1, easily, in my opinion. But I'm fingers crossed. But that is a little bit of a doom prediction I've made. And it sounds weird, like you're saying he's the senior goalkeeper, but he's 20.
Yeah.
So, got such young goalkeepers.
I mean, given that he's only been a goalkeeper as well 3 or 4 years, I think that's astounding. He's not. I wouldn't say he's the cleanest goalkeeper technically, but he is just the most effective goalkeeper you ever see. Like, sheer willpower to keep the ball out the net, and he is quality. He is fantastic. Like, great person to learn off as well.
Yeah, top reactions, and like you're saying yourself about the penalty saves in that cup final, making a name for himself from this spot.
Yeah.
But so you won't have heard this, but earlier in the show, I was talking about my season highlights, and there's one that I deliberately left off as I want to talk to you about it. This year saw the fantastic FA Youth Cup run, reaching the second round proper, which we'll go on to in a minute. But I want to ask you about that first game in this cup run at Invercourt, the preliminary round game against Corinthian Casuals. that finished 18-0. What can you tell us about that game? The feeling in the dressing room afterwards, what was said? I'd love to get some context, because it was almost awkward to watch as a fan after about the 10th goal.
Yeah.
We were kind of like laughing nervously and just like, oh, please just blow the whistle.
Yeah, you thought the referee might take a little bit of mercy, but I think he ended up playing 4 or 5 minutes of extra time as well. So just enough time for us to score 3 more, I think. Yeah, I think that was a bit of a freak show, to be honest. I think we caught a weaker side on a bad day, and we peaked as a team, I think. Well, not peaked, but we played fantastically well. I actually only played 20 minutes of that, I think. But yeah, I think we were so pumped up and ready, given that last year's FA Cup run was such a disappointment. We knew we had to hit it hard this year right from the off. We couldn't allow any sort of slip-ups in the early stages. I think Donovan especially, he was so motivated, so hungry to get us through those first rounds and sort of enable us to get to those latter stages. I think after the game, we were just a bit surprised, frankly. I think we weren't expecting that sort of result in the FA Youth Cup, because it's a competition where you have to take every game seriously. Otherwise, you're out, and that's the end of it for that season. So I think we were surprised. We probably weren't expecting such an emphatic result. But at the same time, I don't think the scoreline was unjust in any way either, to be fair.
No, it could have been double.
Yeah.
Easily. I was there on the night, and it could have been so much worse for them. It was, and it sounds so strange saying that 18-0 was like, no, seriously, that could have been 25-30.
Yeah.
It was such a strange game. But, so do you think that result set you up for the run that you went on, in a way?
I think it definitely gave us some momentum going forward. I think some of the new players as well, it would have been much bigger thing for them, given that they were new coming into the setup, only been with the team, a couple months, or not even that at that point. And for some of them to get some goals, to play well, to dominate on the main pitch, I think it was a big confidence boost for everyone, really, but especially those new players. And yeah, I do think it sort of gave us momentum going forward. It just gave us a belief, knowing that we could score goals, knowing that we could beat teams emphatically, and we gave ourselves a benchmark to kind of pursue every game.
Yeah, and the reason I'm asking about the momentum question is because the next 4 games, all drawn away.
Yeah.
The first round, second round, third round, qualifying, and then the first round proper, all away from home. The draw was I would say, up until Dartford away, and then I was like, oh, okay, that could be a tricky one, but that was 3-1. Really, really good result, we thought. And that led, obviously, to bringing Swindon Town to Imber Court in the second round proper. This was the best cup run the club have had since 2015, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But sadly, no fans could be there on a night due to COVID. Not just that night, but in general. Did the lack of crowd affect you guys at all this season?
I wouldn't think so. I think most of our players, we all know we're very focused. We all know that we've got a goal to sort of strive towards, to aim for. And I think ultimately we're quite good as a group at sort of blocking out those external factors. I think it certainly would have been nice to, especially for that Swindon game, to have, the community around us, to have fans in. But I think obviously it was a strong performance on the night as well. So you'd like to think that we could play as well with or without fans, but I think it would be naive to say that it didn't have some sort of effect.
I mean, the game that night, like you were saying, tight as, went right down to the wire, initially going behind before Archie Vincent scored an absolute beauty, cutting across the Swindon defence, putting it into the corner.
Beautiful goal.
Oh yeah, I watched it again today. really enjoy that one. But yeah, however, dream ended when the visitors score a winner right in the final minutes of extra time, with not much time to react, really. What was the team mentality going into extra time? Was it to try and win it, or keep it tight and go to penalties? What did Donovan say after 90 minutes?
Donovan said, don't change the way you've been playing. go and hit them harder. That we recognised that going into extra time, they had more players going down with cramps than we did. And given that, obviously, as a non-league club, we hadn't been training, we looked the fitter side. Like, we looked physically more ready for that game. We looked stronger and more motivated, I thought, for 90 minutes. And going into extra time, we knew we had a very strong chance at winning the game outright. We weren't looking at pens at that point. I don't think that came into consideration at any point, because we were confident we could go and win it. But yeah, unfortunately, that's not the way it went. That's just how it is in football sometimes, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, 3 months on, do you still think about that game, or is the overriding thoughts more of the accomplishment for the cup run on the whole?
Yeah, so I think it's a tricky one, because on one hand you want to sort of, that feeling after the second goal goes in, you want to banish that from your mind, because it was genuinely heart-wrenching. And I actually have the video of the second goal going in on my phone, and I use that as motivation before I train, before I play, because I never want to feel that feeling again. But at the same time, got to be grateful for the experiences we had in that game and in the tournament on the whole. There were games that I enjoyed personally and that the team played very, very well in. So I think we learned a lot, even though we went out of the cup, didn't manage to progress. But no, for me, I think it's a game to be remembered because of the occasion, but a learning experience as well.
Yeah, and there's definitely no disgrace in that result in any way, shape or form. I mean, Swindon are still in the tournament now.
Yeah.
They won their next game, Bromley, and now I can't remember who they got in the next round, but I know they're still in the tournament in the fourth round. Yeah, enough of that. Don't want to be on a downer. But so it seems that each season there's another crop of players coming up to the first team, and they fit in almost seamlessly. Mm-hmm. What is it, do you think, that Donovan and the staff are doing for this consistent conveyor of talent based on your experience and how well that step up is so seamless almost?
I think everyone knows that there's a very strong pathway at Met, and I think naturally that attracts players that have incredibly high standards for themselves and the team that they're joining. I think when you join the Met Police at under 18s level, you very quickly learn the desire and the drive that everyone at the club has, whether it's the players or the coaches, and you actually find out very quickly who out of the new players isn't up for it, because you see players leaving halfway through the season, and that's when you sort of know that their aspirations, their goals and their drive isn't high enough. So I think it's vital that you have that, but beyond that, I think the club is very facilitating in terms of giving opportunities to young players. Whether it's with the 23s, which is a sort of natural step up towards the first team. I think as well just the culture of the club in terms of the feeling that the managers and coaches want you to have. They want you to feel involved. They want you to feel like it's a realistic step up to aim for those first team experiences. It's a very inclusive club. Obviously I've trained, and I know a number of other under 18s have trained with the first team before. So it's a natural pathway. I think the likes of Paul and Gavin, they all work very hard to sort of promote that and to encourage boys to push themselves and try and reach that first team experience.
So who do you think, in the back of your mind, could be the next player to break through? Who should we be looking for as Met fans next season?
Oh, that's a really difficult question.
You can't say Jude.
Can I not? Is that...
Because we've been told that we know he's on trial at a championship club.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah, we've written him off already.
Bloody hell. That is so hard, because I know for a fact everyone's got it in them.
This is the one question we can say I'm trying to stitch you up.
Yeah, oh my God, mate. You don't make it easy. I think Archie Parks, for sure. Archie Vincent.
Oh, the two players that I got mixed up. Thanks for that. Announcing that one of them had scored, and he immediately sent me a message on Twitter saying thanks, but I'm not even playing tonight.
I saw that, yeah. I mean, there's only 23s players as well that are right on the verge of the first team squad. I genuinely do think it's impossible to name many individuals, because you know it's going to happen. You know that there are going to be a number of players that step up, but I think you're asking a lot if you want me to predict the first 11 for next season.
No, well, yeah, like you say, it's only March, isn't it? And yeah, I've kind of gone into that myself. When you listen to the podcast, I've made a few predictions as to not necessarily who's coming in, but probably going out. So thanks for this. Really appreciate it. I will just close this with one question. What's the ambition for you for next season and beyond that?
So next season, I actually haven't released this publicly to many people at the moment, but I'm going to America to further my studies and further my football. I'm going to a university in South Carolina, and that's where I'll be playing my football next season. But for me, that's a year-on-year aspiration. So I'll take that very much one step at a time. And I think for me, the overall goal is just to play the highest level of football I can, push myself to my limits, meet people, enjoy the experiences, and just be the best player and person I can be.
Is this the third season in a row we've lost a goalkeeper to the States?
It could be, yeah.
Because Archie went last year, didn't he?
Alfie.
Alfie Rule, sorry, yeah, Alfie. Oh, gutted. Wow, so you got to spin that back on me right at the end. I wasn't expecting that.
I thought you were dropping a big question, so I got to drop a big answer.
So my first Met interview is with an ex-Met player.
There's still a few months left, huh?
Yeah, well, hopefully I'll get to see you before you head out there.
100%.
Thanks for doing this. Really do appreciate it. And hope your A-levels go well, mate.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Cool. Take it easy and thanks again.
Thank you.
And that's all for this episode of Follow the Trawler. Thank you to Minnie and Cameron, and a huge shout out to Ollie Bayliss for all he's doing for non-league fans, and the amazing work being done by the Suffolk Non-League Show each Monday on YouTube. We cannot recommend it enough, so if you're a fan of non-league and want to hear two lads being open and honest with an array of interesting guests, give them a watch. We hope you've enjoyed this recording, and if you keep listening, we'll keep putting stuff out there. We'll finish with a special song that was recorded just for us, but that we want to share with you. Closing us out is Minnie Birch and her version of Chris Waddle and Glenn Hoddle's 80s classic, Diamond Lights. Stay safe and speak again soon.
Eyes that freeze like ice, cold electric blue, those diamond lights. You are hard as stone, solid stone for me. The colors change, rearrange my life. Can't explain, so afraid tonight. My darling, I love you. I'll always want you. My darling, I love you. I'll always need you. Oh, darling. Diamond, diamond light. Standing in the rain, cold electric sky, no diamond lights. Now I'm on my own, so alone, darling. The colors change, rearrange my life. Can't explain, so afraid to